Ukulele Tales, the ukulele podcast with John Atkins.
Hello and welcome to Ukulele Tales, the ukulele podcast. As ever, a great big thank you to Carla Brand Music for sponsoring the show. If you go to carlabrand.com/uketeacher, you will get 10% off any ukulele or anything at all on their website just because you listen to Ukulele Tales. So a big, big thank you to Carla. And remember, if you want to send me a message, you can go ahead and email uketeacher@grabyouruke.com to let me know your thoughts on this episode or anything at all, really, as I love to hear from you all, and I do read and reply to every single message I get. Eventually. I had lots and lots of lovely comments and messages about last week's conversation with Ron Telpner, which was just a really special episode all round. So thank you very much to everyone who took the time to reach out to me after that one. And thanks, of course, once again to Ron for sharing your story with everybody. This week, we're getting to know journeyman musician Phil Doleman, who has seen and done so much in the world of music, from pub gigs to festivals to writing books and recording albums to performing on Top of the Pops. And not necessarily in that order, by the way. Pretty much everyone in the UK scene knows Phil, I think. And he's someone who just about everybody likes as well, as far as I can tell. He dropped by my house the other day on the way to a folk music festival, and we had a long, long chat about, amongst other things, stage fright, the Ed Sheeran court case, performing, or should that be lip-syncing, on live kids' TV, why he took his music off Spotify, and how he ended up playing the ukulele at Downton Abbey. But we start off by talking about YouTube, and it turns out that Phil has actually been making videos on there even longer than I have.
So I had a YouTube channel since about 2000 and, well, in fact, I had a YouTube channel when it was Google Video.
Oh, really? Before even, yeah.
I think like
YouTube was
around, but they were both happening at the same time. And then I migrated, well, it all got eaten up and everything got migrated across to YouTube. And I don't think any of those videos, bar one or two, might have survived. A lot of the older ones ended up being binned. But I had about 1,000 subscribers. And I had, gosh, I don't know, nowhere near the number of hours viewing that you had to have to be monetized. And then when lockdown came, after about 2 months of that, I thought this isn't going to go on longer. So I got a new computer, sold off some PA gear that I wasn't going to be using, got a new computer, bought a decent camera, and thought I'll make some videos. Not really for any other reason than just to stop myself going mad, just walking around the house, shuffling around thinking, what do I do with no gigs?
Yeah.
And at that point, I was putting out, on average, for that first year, I put out more than one a day.
No kidding.
Yeah, on average. So I might put out 5 in a day and then nothing else for that week.
Yeah.
And some of them were big batches. So I did a whole series of videos with every single major, minor, minor 7th, dominant 7th chord in 3 positions on the neck, a different video for each one, with just me showing diagrams and my fingers and going, here's a C, here's another C, here's another C.
Right.
Simple short videos. But of course, that was, 48 videos.
Yeah.
They all went up in 1 week.
Okay, yeah, you need to spread these things out a bit. Right?
Yeah, and I can't do that. I can't make something and then hang. People release albums and they go, "This is coming out in 6 months. Here's a teaser."
Yeah.
I've just finished mastering it and it's on. I can't hang on to stuff like that.
But then I think even that's changing. Like the whole album thing is changing. I think now because I've spoken to other musicians about it. They say like they would like to put out an album every 2 years, but because of the Spotify algorithm or whatever it is now, they just have to put out a single basically whenever they have one. So I don't know, things change. I'm trying to get in, well, not trying to, I am in the habit of, I will spend like a couple of days a month filming all my videos, and then I've got like 5 weeks worth of things to post.
Yeah.
When you're putting out 5 videos a day, how did you have the time to edit them and stuff?
Well, it was literally, I would film them during the day, I would edit them during the evenings.
Yeah.
And then go to bed and get up the next morning and film some more and edit some more, and they'd be uploading overnight.
Okay. I do remember the days when it would take like 10 hours to upload a YouTube video or something.
Yeah, we didn't have fast internet at the start of lockdown, but we managed to get upgraded, fortunately, to the point where it wasn't taking so long. And my computer, because I bought the new computer, wasn't taking 4 hours to render a video anymore, which my old creaky laptop was.
Yeah. Hey, you're on the most recent cover of Uke magazine,
I am,
and I just read it, and I also
for
just
the
read.
second time.
I was going to say, yeah, because you were also on the first cover
First
of
one,
the
yeah.
first ever one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really nice. That first one was interesting because I didn't know there was going to be a magazine.
So what they just said, can we interview you for?
I was doing a gig. I happened to be doing a Christmas party gig for the guys at World of Ukes. So it was Matt and Andy, who are, well, I was going to say the League of Ukulele Gentlemen band, but they're not called that anymore because this very week they've relaunched themselves, and I think they're now called, I hope I get this right, Warehouse of Thieves. They've dropped the ukulele thing from the name, and they've taken on more members and grown. And but yeah, they were doing their Christmas party with their sort of first incarnation of their band, and invited me to play. And Matt, being the photographer that he is, does all those lovely pictures for the magazine himself.
So he's the writer and the photographer as well.
Yeah, and Diane, his wife, comes from the publishing industry, so she's brilliant at doing all the layout and design.
I was going to say, it's a really good quality magazine, actually.
Yeah, it is. And they took that picture of me and didn't say, just said, "Can I just take some pictures of you?" And it was a lovely old building in the background. Took some snaps. And then a bit later on, he sent me a mock-up of the front cover saying, "We're going to do this magazine, and we might as well stick this picture on the front." I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Let's do an interview then. So it was lovely to be asked back to appear again, and to think how my answers to questions have changed in 8 years.
Yeah.
My attitude to everything seems to have changed dramatically in that short period of time.
On your website, it said something about you're an occasional contributor to the magazine. Do you just mean because of those interviews, or do you write columns or something?
Oh, every single one. I've
You're in every
managed to
single
get
one?
my face in every single one
really?
in some
Okay.
way, shape,
Yeah.
or form. Yeah, so I've either written. I tend to write a piece for each one, so there'll be a lesson or a piece of music to learn in almost all of them, and then the ones where I've not done that, I'm probably doing one of those little pieces on 5 things I've learned about this, or 10 things I wish I knew when I started, or whatever.
But I saw you're one about 8 tips to like prepare for playing live, basically.
Yes, yeah.
And you mentioned you suffer from stage fright. Is that still the case? That can't still be right, can it? Or
nowhere near as much as it used to be. Although weirdly, having had a couple of years off, I've started to notice at the first few gigs a little bit of the shakes coming back.
Oh no, okay.
Because I'd just been out of it for so long. But I'm pretty sure that that once I've started doing a few more, it'll be fine again. And because I know what happened last time. I used to be so very terrified of getting on stage. The real story behind it is I was in bands from being in school.
Yeah.
And then when I was in my early 20s, left with my then fiance and my wife to go and live in London. And it was just me then. And so I got my guitar and I was writing a few songs and trying to get a few gigs. And I'd never been nervous on stage before because I'd had 4 or 5 other people on stage with me. And in a couple of the bands I was in, I was the bass player. So I was standing at the back, no pressure, having fun.
Yeah.
And then I walk out on stage just with a guitar and find that I'm literally shaking. And I would come off stage and I would be physically sick when I came off stage. And I have no recollection of what I just played. Some of the gigs, I started to record them on a little portable recorder, mini disc. That's where we're going back. Mini disc recorder. You'd get the sound guy to plug it into the desk, and I started listening to my own gigs and thinking, it's not that bad. People clapped.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I thought I screwed that up, but it turns out it was fine. And I realised the only way to get over it was just to convince my brain that this was normal. So I did everything I could do. Every open mic, didn't matter what it was, I went and played. And almost like a switch. At one point, my brain kind of went, so this is what we're doing, is it? I better stop being an idiot about this and just let you get on with it.
Yeah.
And it went away. And like I say, just after lockdown, couple of the first gigs after lockdown, I was a little bit shaky and I could feel the leg wobbling again, just like it used to. And I thought, I need to get out a little bit more and do a few more and get back in the saddle.
What do you prefer doing, workshops or playing music live?
I think my first love is playing music.
Yeah.
And playing it in front of people. I did a few live, streams from my living room during lockdown. And whilst it was great to be doing it, the audience was the missing part.
Yeah.
Definitely. But weirdly, over the years, I've stopped noticing as much of a difference between performing and workshops. So I kind of treat the workshops like a gig.
Okay.
They're just another kind of gig. So there's that interaction with the audience still, and everyone's sitting there looking at you. And rather than saying entertainers, they're going, show us something, teach us something. But really, the dynamic is pretty much the same. But certainly in terms of going to a club, say, and being booked to do an hour's workshop for them, or going to a local pub and playing for 2 hours to an audience that don't even know who you are and didn't notice there was a band on tonight, and walking away with a fraction of what you got paid for doing the workshop. So it all averages out that teaching definitely earns more money than playing.
It's funny you should mention about people not even realizing there's music going on, and no disrespect to music, but it can be kind of a background thing. I used to do comedy, and I've been to pubs where people didn't know there was comedy going on.
Oh yeah, that's definitely
and that's
worse.
much worse, right?
Yeah.
You're sort of telling a joke, and there's just like people having their own chats or conversations or whatever. That's not a fun time.
Yeah, you've got to have that interaction with comedy.
Yeah.
That was the weird thing, because the band that the duo I had with Ian Emerson, the Re-Entrants, that was essentially a comedy act, but a comedy act that we really, really focused on quality musicianship. We didn't just do it for a laugh. We wanted the laugh to be people didn't expect us to do what we were going to do. Then we did it.
Yeah.
That was kind of the joke was, but they're not going to do that song, are they? Oh, they are. But they won't do the guitar. Oh, they are doing the guitar solo.
On the ukulele.
Just 2 ukuleles.
Yeah.
And so part of the joke was that, but we also had a good on-stage relationship. So the gigs where we got booked to be a covers band, where the audience might like the songs and recognize them and sing along, but they weren't really paying attention to the banter and the idea behind it, were never as satisfying as the ones where the audience got the little jokes or got the funny little glances and things like that were all very carefully, put into the act.
Yeah.
But at least we could be, and did, we could play weddings. And because we did popular stuff, even if people paid no attention to us, we'd just look at each other and go, this is a very well-paid rehearsal. Everyone wants to talk to Auntie Gladys, who they've not seen for 6 months, and that's fine. We'll just run through the set, play it as best we can, miss out all the banter, all the jokes, just play the songs.
Yeah.
And that'll do very nicely.
That's funny. I was just speaking to Plastic Jesus recently, or, their podcast came out recently.
I listened to it, yeah.
Oh, thanks. And they said they'd rather get... Actually, I don't want to misquote them. They would rather get a laugh than applause at the end of a song, which I think is quite brave, actually, in some ways. Most musicians would maybe not have that confidence. I think they'd want to get the applause.
Yeah.
I think they'd rather get a laugh.
I think Ian and I would probably have rather have got a laugh than the applause.
Yeah.
Because that was the bit where it almost like that showed that the audience were actually paying attention.
Yeah.
To get the laugh. People always clap when that's the other thing with comedy. You've got to hear the punchline to know that the thing's finished.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're playing music, when the music stops, you clap.
Yeah.
Even if you're there over there and you're having a conversation, you just put your drink down and politely clap.
Just out of politeness, exactly. Yeah.
They don't actually have to have recognised what song you were playing. It's just the gap in the sound. So a laugh certainly meant that people were paying attention. I thought that was a really great interview with the guy. I went to see them at the Leicester Comedy Festival. They were great.
Yeah, they are.
They sold the plays out and absolutely, they absolutely killed them. They were really funny.
So there's a quote on your website, and there is context behind the quote, but I'd like to just spring it to you without context.
Okay.
Where you say, I'm not really an Ed Sheeran kind of guy.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, that's specifically aimed at the people that want to come for lessons with me.
Okay.
Because in the same way that I play what I like, I don't want to try and teach things that I'm not really... Well, I don't like to use the word expert, but I would rather teach things that I know what I'm doing with. As well as it being enjoyable for me, and as well as me as having thousands and thousands of songs and pieces charted out that fit that style of music. If somebody wants to come and learn how to play traditional Hawaiian music, I'm not the guy.
Yeah.
There are many, many better people. I know nothing about that, and I don't pretend to. And it's the same thing. A lot of people want to learn, current pop songs on the ukulele. And you teach a lot of those on YouTube, and I've deliberately not done that on YouTube because I know there are people who do that and do it really well and are really on the ball. So a song will come out and they'll teach that song.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, the song I'm teaching this week is 97 years old.
Right.
Not really on the ball. But I've got to the point where I want to do what I do. So the students I have And the people who come to my Patreon, again on Patreon, I have color-coded themes. I teach jazz, blues, jug band, and I've got sort of towards country, I call it a little bit country, and then a few different theory and technique themes. But there's no themes for rock or pop or anything like that. It's all basically American music from the 20s to 40s. So I'm in a niche within a niche. I'm in the ukulele niche. And I'm also in
the jug band
niche, which is a very small one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the stuff I love. So the nice thing is that means that when I teach a lesson, I'm always looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not going to sit down and go, oh, this week I am mainly teaching, I don't know, no disrespect to anybody, just names out of the air. I'm mainly teaching Lady Gaga songs.
Yeah.
Or all the stuff. I mean, we used to play Lady Gaga songs in the Re-Entrants.
Right.
But I don't think I would want to sit and teach those songs, and I don't think I'd find it in a very selfish way, I don't think I'd find it very satisfying. I'd much rather teach the stuff that I can get enthusiastic about.
Oh, I've been there. I know exactly what you're saying, because there were certainly times back in the day where I would be like, oh, there's a new song by, again, like say, no disrespect to anyone, just the name of the top of my head, Billie Eilish.
Yeah.
I've got to do it today while it's like number one trending song or whatever.
Someone else will if I don't.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And like, it's not necessarily my favorite kind of music. I don't really know anything about it. And I don't want to be like rushed into doing something as well, but that's kind of how I felt like it had to be. And now I'm just a bit more like, oh, I'm going to do Money for Nothing because I like that song.
Yeah.
I don't care if no one else remembers it or likes it. And to be fair, people do like that song, I'm sure. But, But maybe there's not so many, 12 to 18-year-olds who know it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But basically, anyway, the point is I'm just doing what I want to be doing now. More, anyway.
I think you hit on a problem there, though. I think
that's
why you've got your 1 million subscribers plaque and I haven't.
Maybe. Yeah.
Is that I'm very much aware that the audience for what I do are generally my age and older.
Right, okay.
There aren't that many. There are a few, and there are some great young bands coming up. But in terms of mass appeal, the people who like the stuff that I do, which might be stuff like, I don't know, old New Orleans jazz or Dr. John or Big Bill Broonzy or those sort of things, tend to be people that have listened to that all their lives from when they were young. Met a guy at a festival the other weekend who told me how he'd been to see Big Bill Broonzy perform.
Yeah.
This would have been in the 60s, early 60s in London. And he said, I remember seeing him. He came over on this tour and he played. And somebody else saying, I was at that train station. Have you seen the video where Muddy Waters and Sister Rosetta Tharpe and Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee play on a Manchester railway station in 1964.
Okay. Yeah.
This is all before my time, but they're say 15, 20 years older than me, and they saw all this cool stuff that I wish I'd seen.
Yeah.
So they're very much into it from their youth, and they've stuck with it. And they're the people that go to jazz festivals and blues festivals and, go on tours to places like Route 66 or go to New Orleans to see, the street performers there. That's what they love. Not so many people younger than me are remotely into the stuff that I do.
Yeah.
So I'm aware that maybe in 10 or 15 years' time, my audience might be a lot smaller than it is now.
Well, there might be like a whole new audience coming up for you who'll be like, wow, you saw Plastic Jesus at the Leicester thing,
Yeah.
So, or Mark Gallagher at Knuth or something like that, So who knows?
Yeah.
Because I know, like, I'm always sort of like, I can't believe my dad saw like the Beatles at Finsbury Park or whatever. Yeah. But then I know I've got a million experiences that I maybe haven't fully appreciated because they're happening now. And then maybe Percy will be like, oh, Dad, you saw whoever it is, this band at this time. That's so cool,
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But
it's scary when you work out a song and you're charting it out ready for, say, a Patreon lesson. And one I did recently was, I think the date on it was 1890 something.
No kidding, really?
It was Champagne Charlie. It's a very, very old song. I didn't realise how old it was. And I'm looking at that going, God, that's like 130-ish years old, that song is. We're almost in the realm of people working in classical music, who quite happily perform things that are 300, 400, 500 years old.
That's true,
and are still performing it now. And I'm thinking, is some of this stuff going to stick around as long as that? I guess it has the advantage of being music that was made, if not in the recorded music age, near enough to it that people did record it.
Yeah.
So stuff that was recorded in the 20s and beyond.
Well, you're kind of keeping it alive, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that's a big thing to sort of have on your shoulders. And
Yeah.
what I don't do, and I know some people do and some people don't, is I try not to copy. I try to take the song and do something with it that means that maybe I'm not keeping it alive in the sense that people will be hearing me do it and not the original. And in fact, it's one of the reasons when I teach stuff on Patreon, I put links under every video going, here's the original. Go and listen to these people doing it who
Yeah.
did it better than me way back. But yeah, I suppose by playing stuff live, that is a way of doing it. YouTube's interesting because you can now listen to and watch
Anything.
many of these performers
Yeah.
now. Even if you can't see film of them, you can listen to them on YouTube with a nice montage of photographs of them.
Yeah.
But quite a lot of those performers performed well into the era where people filmed them. And you've got the Library of Congress recordings of those blues musicians who were all dragged out of retirement in the early 60s
Yeah.
to be filmed because people realized that this was their culture and these people weren't going to be around much longer.
Yeah.
So they sat them in a room and in some cases, gave them a bottle of whiskey and waited while they tried to remember what they used to do and would play a few songs. And
Yeah.
we've got that, which we haven't got with classical music.
Yeah.
We've only
And
got
not
the
just
written
got
notes.
it, but got it at the touch of a button.
Yeah, instantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So on the subject of Ed Sheeran, which we weren't really talking about, but I was just wondering, I was thinking about you because that court case recently. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of the workshop that I saw of you at Gnuff.
Yeah.
Because what I don't think anyone's really talked about is, I mean, let me just sum it up for the listeners in case they're not aware. Ed Sheeran basically got sued by the estate of, I want to say, Marvin Gaye,
Yeah.
because one of his songs has the same chord progression as one of Marvin Gaye's songs.
Mm.
And there was an argument about, can you even copyright a chord progression? Can you claim ownership of it, right?
Yeah.
And what do you, I mean, I don't think you can.
Well, in the eyes of the law, you can't.
Yeah.
It's melody and it's lyrics.
Yeah.
That's the only copyrightable thing. Thank goodness, because not only do I play a whole bunch of songs that have the same three chords, because I play a lot of blues and early country and jug band stuff, and all that stuff has the same chords. Then I also play a lot of jazz, and so much of jazz is based around the chord sequence that I got rhythm.
Yeah.
Literally, it's called rhythm changes amongst jazz musicians. It's what we all learn how to improvise over. That's the chords to I Got Rhythm, which
Yeah.
is also the chords to the Flintstones theme,
Right.
which is also
Yeah.
the chords to the theme to University Challenge.
Is it?
They're the
Okay,
same
no.
chord
Yeah,
sequence. You can
yeah.
play them along to. I love the fact that the Flintstones and University Challenge essentially have the same
I did
theme
not
tune.
know. I'm going to have to play them side by side. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, and so many other songs, so many
Yeah.
jazz standards, or they take bits of them. That if this had gone through and been kind of a test case,
Yeah.
the floodgates would have opened. Everybody would have sued everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was this time around because he's been sued before, hasn't he? But I don't know. Maybe it was the time before. Maybe it was the early rumblings of this one. That there was an interesting thing about one of the guys who wrote the song with Marvin Gaye had previously been in a band before that and had written another song with the same chord sequence.
Mm.
So in theory, you could argue that the Marvin Gaye one was stolen or rewritten by the same guy in a new band for Marvin Gaye, because that chord sequence had existed in one of his previous songs,
Yeah.
almost plagiarizing himself.
Yeah.
And just the fact that that happened surely means that you can't then sue someone else for being the next chain who uses the same chord sequence. And I don't think they're even exactly the same chords.
Right.
I think there's a
stupid
slight
thing, yeah.
substitution in
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I'm surprised they didn't bust out that Axis of Awesome song, like 24 or 48 four-chord songs, whatever.
Yeah.
Because they just have like hundreds of different songs. Or
Same
40
four
different songs
chords.
with the same four chords
Same
all the
four
way.
chords as the Ed Sheeran song.
Exactly, yeah. Including
yeah.
the Ed Sheeran song, I think,
Yeah.
maybe in one of the versions.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been a perfect thing to pull out in court.
Yeah.
Because you just show that to a jury and they'd laugh at it and they'd enjoy it and they go, this whole thing's ridiculous. isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. See, I should have been his
yeah.
lawyer. I should have helped him out there.
I think the interesting thing is there seems to be quite a predatory lawyer involved. I don't know if we can say this online, but it's the same lawyer for the previous court case with the Blurred Lines track.
Oh, right, okay.
And that was also the estate of Marvin Gaye.
I remember
yeah.
at the time not really thinking they had much of a case, but I think they
Yeah.
did win.
They won
handsomely,
that
didn't
one
they?
because one of them was caught saying that they had taken influence from that song.
Oh, okay.
So even though, strictly speaking, they didn't steal any bits
I
of
was gonna say,
actual music,
yeah.
he'd said that he wanted it to sound like that
Yeah.
song. And that was kind of the point where they went, well, you can't say you weren't aware of it. You can't say it was subconscious. You were consciously listening to this song and copying it. Still,
But
we all do that.
I was
We
going
all
to say,
do that.
if you can get sued for being influenced by something,
Yeah.
then how is music ever going to progress? Because everything you make is influenced by something else, and that's how we make.
It sounds
new stuff.
dramatic, but nobody, and even Ed Sheeran himself said, "Well, if I lose this, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore." And you can think, "Oh, that sounds a bit dramatic," but if every time somebody successful writes a song, somebody sues them, pretty soon there's not much point in writing songs anymore. It's going to end up costing you money to fight off all the lawsuits time and time again. So you can imagine a lot of people thinking, "What's the point of writing a song now?"
Mm-hmm.
Unless, of course, you're just not very successful, and then nobody cares.
Right. I was going to say, perhaps you just enjoy making music.
Yeah,
that might
exactly.
Be one reason. Yeah.
So I don't worry about it if I put a song together, even though I know that I'm using chord sequences that have been used before. Because when I write a song, I want it to fit in with the old songs that I play.
Yeah.
So
you want it to sound like the Flintstones theme tune when you.
Yeah.
Fact-checking alert. So I posted this clip on Instagram and Facebook the other day as a little teaser for the show, and I was informed that apparently Ed Sheeran's lawyers did actually play the Axis of Awesome song on the stand as part of his defense. Shows that I clearly have a great, albeit incredibly slow, legal mind, and it serves me right for trying to be clever, I suppose. Anyway, let's get back to the interview with Phil Doleman. Let me ask you, because you've just said you want to do your own thing, the things you're interested in, and it's sort of 1920s to 40s jug band stuff and New Orleans jazz and blues and all that stuff. But you were on Top of the Pops 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So what happened there? How did that happen?
Oh, well, I mean, that was weirdly, that's just one of those things that comes about of being someone who is trying to be a working musician. So it only came about when somebody got in touch with me who ran a music website that hosted unsigned bands. And I got a few of my songs on there. And he literally phoned me up and said, "Do you know anybody who might be interested in coming along to do this session? I've got a band. I've found all the people I need for the band, but the guy wants a fiddle player and a banjo player." And I literally just acquired a banjo. And I just went, I can do that. I didn't know if I could, but that's one of the things you have to do to make a living in the music world, is so you can do something and then learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it was a very, very tiny, simple part, but a crucial part that needed to be on the record. It was a rewrite of Come On Eileen. So you can imagine why we need fiddle and banjo for the main riffs of that song. And so I went along to a little studio under a railway arch, recorded the demo for this guy. Went away with £100 in my wallet and thought, great, I'm a working musician. I got a call for a session. I did it. I earned some money. I went home. I'm happy. I've done something. All that time, playing instruments wasn't completely wasted. I can go out and work doing this. And then just through a bizarre set of happenings, it got assigned. And the guy organising it kind of insisted that it was, well, he wanted a band. He didn't want to just get it signed from the demo, because then what would he do about it? Who would he have to go and help promote it? So he said, well, let's sign you as a band. And so we all signed a record contract, went back into another studio, slightly nicer, recorded it again with a proper producer who knew what he was doing in terms of making it radio play-wise, making it a hit, lose that long intro, get straight to the chorus, all of that sort of stuff. And they put it out and for Euro 2004, so it's going on 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it got to number 2.
Yeah.
And then the weird thing is your name's on the contract. So you get a phone call saying you need to be in London tomorrow at 6 a.m. because we're on the telly. and I've got a record contract, so I've got to do it. So
Oh, wow.
this is when I just left London. I just moved out of London back to Derbyshire. I'm back down to London on the train to do things like CD UK and Top of the Pops and things like that.
Oh, you did CD UK as well?
The CD UK. Top of the Pops was interesting because that was a pre-record.
Yeah, it was outdoors.
So it was outdoors
Yeah.
in the Donut at Television Centre.
Yeah.
That was fun. We did it in the middle of the afternoon. We could do as many takes as we like. We could have a bit of fun with it and still home in time for tea.
Yeah.
Whereas CD UK, of course, it was all miming. Even though we actually went into rehearsal rooms, learnt to play it all properly live and filmed it and sent those recordings to the record company going, we can play live. We are all proper musicians.
Yeah.
If we ever need to play live, look, we can do it. Of course, we never
that
got
won't
the
be
opportunity.
necessary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they didn't
yeah.
want that hassle. But CD UK was a 6 a.m. call.
Ooh.
And we were on as the end credits rolled.
At like 12 o'clock or something, 1 o'clock.
11:27,
Okay.
we went on. 11:30, program ended.
Yeah.
And then had to get to Wolverhampton to a branch of Woolworths to sign copies of it in about 2.5 hours. So we ran to cars and left London and whizzed up there to do something else. But it was 4 weeks of absolute madness. And it just really convinced me that that was fun, but not the thing I ever wanted to do. And you know how you imagine you want to do that when you're a teenager. You get a record contract, you rush around the country, you sign autographs, you go on the TV. Yeah, 4 weeks of that, and we all just went, never doing that again. That's not what we want to do.
Yeah.
And we could see all the other bands who were there, and we were all older. All these young bands there in their teens and early 20s. So you just think, you're going to do this until you have a breakdown or they just drop you.
Yeah.
And then what's going to happen? You know, all these really young bands who literally were doing this every weekend, traveling around promoting it. And you think, this is no way to have a career. And also, it was nothing to do with music.
No, right.
Nothing at all to do with music.
Yeah.
It was to do with the media and to do with football and things like that.
Yeah.
But at least I can say I did it.
Yeah.
It's a nice experience and I don't have to do it anymore.
You know, they're rerunning it on BBC 4.
Oh, yeah.
They're up to about 1994, 95, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So it won't be too long before your episodes will be on.
Oh, they repeated a football song one when there was a football tournament on not that long ago. I remember one of my kids shouting from in her, Dad, you're on the telly. And I'm like,
yeah.
What? What have I done? Is it Crime Watch? Is it the news?
Yeah.
And she'd spotted me on this football themed Top of the Pops rerun. Still get royalties.
Do you? Yeah.
You wouldn't
Like
believe
a few pennies.
You wouldn't believe how
Yeah.
little. That's the crazy thing. You wouldn't believe how little money was involved as far as we were concerned in that.
Yeah.
Peanuts, absolute peanuts. At the time, we made a couple of £100 each, and that's about it. For a song that sold, I think I got the figures somewhere, but it was certainly 80,000 copies or something like that. Because I remember saying we had to try and sell this many to get top 10, and this many to try and get to number 1.
Yeah.
Which we didn't quite do.
Do you know who was at number 1 when you were at number 2?
I want to say Akon. I'm not sure if that's.
I don't even know what that is.
It was a kind of a rap, R&B kind of thing. I think it was Akon. I've certainly still got all the emails and stuff about it, so I can check.
Well, you're still going. I don't know if they're still going.
Oh God, probably not. After 20 years,
Yeah.
None of those bands are still going. I don't think. Yeah, but it was a fun experience. But
I bet.
I think it's so different to what I imagined. That's kind of what I imagined it would be like when I was a teenager wanting to be in bands. But actually, no, genuinely doing what I do now is much more satisfying than running around, even if there's this perceived level of success, whatever that means. I suppose if you're on someone's TV screen or if you're on a disc in a shop, that's this perceived level of success.
Yeah.
And yet, in most realistic metrics of what it means to be successful, I feel far more successful now than I ever did then.
But you're still really busy, aren't you? I mean, how many gigs are you doing, like, at the moment, this year or this month? I mean, what do you do, like every weekend or?
I'm just about to hit, so I'm on my way now to Halsey Manor near Taunton to teach for the whole weekend and play in the evenings. And then pretty much, I think I've got 1 or 2 weekends free between now and August. But that's kind of festival season.
Yeah.
So every weekend, and then occasionally smaller gigs in between in the middle of the week. That'll take me to August. August will be a bit quieter because a lot of the little smaller clubs and festivals don't run then. because people have gone on their holidays
Yeah.
and they don't want to lose their audience. Then in September, it'll come back up again. I've already got quite a few booked for September, October. And then as it gets towards Christmas, it'll dip down again. And then come March time, it'll start to gradually pick up. And the smaller gigs come at much shorter notice. So I've got bookings for festivals for 2024.
Yeah.
But I might get a booking for a gig the week before a festival, 2 weeks before that festival. Someone will just say, can you do next Wednesday?
Yeah.
So it's quite nice. I've got these landmarks in the future and then little things pop up in between. I'm not as busy as I used to be, but that's because I am being more selective.
Well, how far are you willing to travel for these things, though?
Anywhere.
In the UK?
Absolutely anywhere. Yeah,
Anywhere?
Yeah, anywhere. But I used to do that. I used to go anywhere and come back the same night. So,
Right.
drive from where I am in Derbyshire. I've driven down here and done a gig and turned around and gone back home again. And then maybe the next night turn around and gone all the way up the M6 to Lancaster or Preston or somewhere like that and come all the way home again the next night and getting home at 3 a.m. Nowadays, I don't try and drive home.
Yeah.
I stay and I try and make sure that if I'm doing those gigs, that I'm not going to come home out of pocket.
Yeah.
I'm going to have covered my petrol. I'm going to cover my accommodation. And if I make a little bit of money on top of that to help pay the next bill, that's great.
Even better. Right, yeah.
But I'd rather go and drive a long way to do a fun gig for fun people than drive half that to do a gig for people that aren't really interested.
Yeah.
And that's more or less like the pub scene. And I used to do a lot of pub gigs, and some of them were great. And there's some great venues that are proper music pubs, but a lot of them they get the big book out and say, we need a band for Friday, pick a band. I remember a very white face appearing on this publican who opened the door to me and Ian, because he'd just booked a band he'd had before, or the pub had before, but a different landlord. And he'd just been handed the book of bands that have played here.
Yeah.
And he'd look and go, these guys haven't played for 6 months, book them.
Okay.
Are you still the same price because we paid you this last time? Yep,
Yeah.
okay. And we turn up with a ukulele in each hand. And he'd say, do you want a hand with your drum kit? And we go, no, it's just us with these. And he just literally, the colour went from his face. And we had to just go, they'll be fine.
Yeah. Don't worry, we are good.
We've played here before. They'll be fine. And
Yeah.
it was a great gig. It was great fun. We had a nice bunch of people along and it was good fun. But it could equally have been a gig where they didn't know what they were booking. Quite a lot of those places just would write live music on a blackboard.
Yeah.
Which is no real way to get people in to see any particular kind of thing.
No, I guess
not
not,
even
yeah.
live jazz or just live music.
Music.
You go,
Yeah, that's so offensive, isn't it, in some ways?
Yeah.
That's quite insulting.
That's
I think.
going to get a crowd in
Yeah.
who don't really want live music.
Yeah.
But they want to go to the same pub and meet their mates there.
Yeah.
And they might listen, they might not.
In between gigs as well, you write books and record music and write music as well, right?
Yeah. I wrote a book, 2017 now, how music works on the ukulele, purely because some people at a workshop I was doing that was theory-based, this workshop came to me at the end, a couple of people said, what book should we buy that'll help us with this? Is there a good music theory book for the ukulele? But I don't want to have to learn to play the piano and read music. I want to understand all this stuff without having to go back to, the stuff I was learning at school and didn't get at school. And at the time, I said, I don't think there is. And they said, you should write it. We'll buy it. And so I wrote that book over the summer. Had 100 copies printed with the last bit of money on my credit card. I maxed out my credit card to get 100 books printed. The car needed to go in for a service. It was not looking good at that point. And I thought, well, I might as well. I had 100 copies made. I put it up online for sale and sat down with my wife with a glass of wine and said, well, if I sell 10, then that's brought a chunk of the money back. And then I can drag the rest around to festivals. And maybe over the course of the next year, I'll
eventually
sell the
get
rest.
Rid of them, yeah.
And they all sold in half an hour.
Really?
And another
Wow.
100.
Yeah.
My phone just went bing, 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 bing. The orders came in and I was doing it all myself. So I was going to the post office then, carrying big boxes of envelopes and on the phone to the printer going, just send another 100 of those. Because by the time they'd arrived, I'd sent those out. The next batch had been printed and came. I think now, brilliantly, now that I sell them through World of Ukes. So Matt at World of Ukes deals with that for me.
Okay.
Partly because of once Brexit happened, it became very difficult for me to sell stuff overseas.
Right.
I would have had to
yeah.
have been VAT registered and VAT registered in at least one EU country, and it's very confusing. Of course, Matt runs a shop. He had all that in place, and he was already selling my books in his shop. So I just said, you sell all of them, and we'll come to an arrangement where we split the money, and then you can deal with all of that, and I'll just invoice you when you've sold some.
Yeah.
Which really saved me. And I wrote a second book, the How Songs Work book, I wrote just before lockdown, which was terrible because it meant I ended up with a living room full of books and nowhere to take them. And still a lot of my sales were face to face.
Yeah.
I've got a box full of books in the boot now on the way down to Halsey. They're still selling. So most of those were sold online. But again, I've managed to sell several thousand copies.
That's incredible.
Of both of them. And then I've done some other little books, a blues book and things like that. I really ought to write another one.
Yeah.
It's been a few years. And then recording music, I went a bit crazy. I actually took all my stuff down off Spotify. I took all my stuff down off Spotify in one of those kind of peaks of anger that we sometimes get at musicians. You say there was a whole thing about the kind of people that Spotify is generally not popular with musicians anyway, even the ones that use it. It doesn't pay very well. What's the point in it? But then they started putting in some fairly controversial podcasts on there. And paying millions of pounds to have
tens
them.
of millions.
And we're all sitting, all the musicians are going, actually, this guy's sort of spewing hate on here and getting paid a lot of money. And we're paying for that by being on there. For me, that was the final straw. I just went, no. Given as well that some of the stuff, even the fairly old stuff I do, you still have to pay licensing for. So I was paying to get this stuff on there and paying for the licensing for it to be there. So I wasn't making any money from it at all, not even fractions of a penny. And so I took it all down from there and I went onto Bandcamp exclusively. And then through lockdown, again, just to try and keep myself busy, I've gone from having about 20 or 25 tracks on there pre-lockdown to having, I think we're on 137
I was going to say, you've got like sort of 15 albums or something, right?
Yeah. Every time Bandcamp Friday comes around, I like to try and have something to put out.
Got it, okay.
So it might be one song, or it might be a little EP, or it might be a full album.
Yeah.
And again, that's where technology is brilliant. Just like here, this is more or less where the kind of thing I sit at home, a couple of microphones on my computer, and I can sit and record tunes.
So you're just recording it all at home as well?
I record it all at home.
Yeah.
I've been an avid home recorder since the 80s.
Oh, have you? Okay.
Cassette-based 4-tracks and
amazing,
things like that.
lovely.
So all that stuff I've learnt along the way now is brilliant because I can sit at a machine now and have, if I so wanted, I can have 30, 32, 64 tracks.
Yeah.
I mean, you think what the Beatles worked with.
Oh, I know. It's
4
crazy.
tracks.
Yeah.
There's no excuse for not being able to do it in your own home because you've got better stuff than any of those bands ever had.
It is crazy. Like, I've made songs on like my phone, on GarageBand on my phone.
Yeah.
That are like better than, not better songs necessarily, but like better production-wise than, stuff that would have been in the charts sort of, 30 years ago or something. So it's unbelievable. I don't want to say there's no excuse, but like there's no reason why if you want to make music.
Yeah, you can't blame the tech.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you can't make a good song with what we've got now, then you probably can't make a good song.
Yeah,
there's so much stuff you can use. And for me, of course, because I'm largely an acoustic act, it's an absolute piece of cake. Because, I put an EP out, or it doesn't really matter, is it an LP, an EP? Those terms are kind of meaningless now, but a collection of songs that were just me playing the uke live into one mic. So, of course, it took me an afternoon to record it because I could already play those songs. So I just played through them until I got, 3 or 4 times each, picked the best take, compiled them all together, did a little bit of studio, but no editing needed, nothing like that. The only thing I really did to it was a bit of EQ, bit of compression, just to level match everything, make it sound nice, and so it sounds like the other stuff on my Bandcamp page. It doesn't suddenly get louder or quieter, and upload it to Bandcamp, hit the button, and it's released. It's instant. I put a live one out because I did a set at a festival, and we put a little audio recorder in the room, hidden away in a little kind of weird ceiling thing. We just thought we could hide an audio recorder up there and switch it on and record the whole night.
Yeah.
And this was George Spartle at Bracklesham, and he sent me the audio files, and I went, these sound great. I'll pick out 5 songs that I've not released live on any other thing. Last Bandcamp Friday, that was my EP release.
And it sounded okay, just like a little sort of hidden recorder.
Yeah. And one of the reasons it sounded okay was it was just me on stage.
Yeah.
So there's no chance of listening to it and going, oh, the bass is just really, really loud.
Yeah.
Or the drummer's drowning everything out. And because it was up high, you could hear the audience, but not hear them coughing right next to the mic.
Say, it'd be me,
you hear the applause
on the phone or something. Yeah,
you could hear the applause. And also, it was at Bracklesham, which is the sort of mobile festival that George and Mandy from Ukulele sort of look after. And we were on the Isle of Wight. The people that go to that are all ukulele fanatics.
Yeah.
They want to listen. It's the best listening audience you could get. A ukulele festival audience. They listen. You know, if they're going to sit there and watch you, they're not going to talk through it like maybe a pub gig. And the PA was great, and it wasn't loud. So a lot of what was being picked up was the acoustic sound from the stage. It wasn't overly amplified, so it sounded really nice.
Yeah.
And this, I always think I would rather listen to an average quality recording of a good live performance than a pristine recording of a so-so performance.
Okay, yeah.
And I also think once you get the interaction with the audience recorded as well, that kind of drags the listener into it. They feel like they're part of the audience.
Just one thing I wanted to ask you about was playing at Downton Abbey.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
What's the story there?
Oh, I mean, it's literally one of those things that sounds great, but it's not. It's a non-story, really, because it's a wedding venue. And we just did a wedding gig there. It was the wonderful Tristy Vogue who'd been asked to do it and couldn't, and recommended us. And so we drove all the way down there to...
This is in the Re-Entrants?
Yeah, this was Highclere Castle. And because we were essentially being booked as just a straightforward covers band, but a covers band that was quiet and took up very little space, we got a lot of gigs by being able to be as quiet as we could be. No drummer to push the volume up, and to be able to squeeze into a tiny corner of a little room where they're having the champagne reception or whatever. We'd be leaving as the big loud band for the evening would be arriving.
Yeah.
And we'd pass in the car park as the huge transit van arrives full of flight cases. We'd just walk out with our ukes.
Yeah.
And, but we did have to go up into the minstrel's gallery and actually play the bride in.
Oh, wow, okay.
Which is the most high-pressure thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
Is to quickly knock up an arrangement of like the wedding march.
Yeah.
And play it on solo ukulele. We had a tiny little PA system and we had 2. We got one set up there so that we could play there. And then as soon as we'd done that, it was quietly turn that off and unplug and literally heads down, crawl away and try and sneak into the next room so that when they'd finished and walked in, we were in there ready to do the next bit. So we had two PAs set up. But yeah, it's a beautiful venue. We were due to play outside and of course it threw it down with rain.
Yeah.
And they really wanted us to play outside, and we said we couldn't because this is electricity and there's no cover outside. And they said, well, the rain's going to stop now, and we'd already set up inside. So they said, what if we open the French doors and put you at the French doors? Then you're inside, but you can play outside to the people who will now go outside because the sun's come out. So we did that, and no sooner we started playing than the heavens opened and everyone came in. And we've got our back to them.
Yeah.
We're playing to nobody in the garden and all the people are behind us. So he's kind of had to subtly turn around mid-song and then in between songs spin the speakers around and do it that way. Wedding gigs were always like that. There was always something that wasn't quite as you imagined it was going to be. All of them were absolutely completely different.
Yeah.
But all of them, really enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because you never know what's going to happen. And because we tended to be the afternoon polite music and not the loud band in the evening most of the time, that meant that we didn't really have to deal with drunk wedding guests and people getting out of hand or whatever, which sometimes happens. We had a couple of weddings where we were the main band where people try and climb on stage and do karaoke and things like that.
Oh, my goodness.
But if you're the ones playing for the champagne reception before dinner, they all disappear for dinner and we leave.
Yeah.
And they were really nice gigs to do. In fact, if the money dries up, I'll just get a nice load of fingerstyle arrangements and put on a suit and sit in a corner and play those for people at weddings.
Yeah, why not?
I'll be happy doing that. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. thank you, Phil, for that great chat. I really appreciate it. It was lots of fun talking with you, and what a lot of fascinating and enjoyable stories there. I can't wait to catch up with Phil again soon on the festival circuit, probably, as he really does seem to pop up all over the place. So I'm sure our paths will cross again sooner rather than later. And if you haven't ever had the pleasure already, I really, really do recommend checking out Phil's YouTube channel. He has some terrific and very well explained videos on there, talking all about all kinds of useful and great stuff, including how to easily and quickly learn all the notes on the ukulele fretboard. It's a great channel, and I really do recommend you giving it a look. Now, did you guys enjoy this episode? Let me know. Or let me know if you'd like to be a guest on the show. Or maybe you have some ideas for people you'd like to hear me talk with. You can contact me anytime at thenewlookukuleletales.com, or you can simply drop me an email to uketeacher@grabyouruke.com. So go ahead and give me a shout. And don't forget, if you'd like to help support the podcast, you can always sign up to my Patreon page just to throw a few dollars my way, and it'll help ensure that I can carry on putting out this podcast for you. And of course, another great way to help out is simply by spreading the word. Let your uke friends and family know all about Ukulele Tales. Hey, it's a free podcast with some absolutely world-class guests. What's not to love? Just tell them to check out Ukulele Tales. There's a new episode every Wednesday, and I'm sure they'll be glad you did. A big thank you once again to Carla for sponsoring the show. Remember, you can get a full 10% off anything on their website. That's any ukulele, a new set of strings, a book, whatever it is you want. If you can find it on the Carla website, you'll get 10% off just by visiting my special link, carlabrand.com/uketeacher. And that's just because you listen to Ukulele Tales, the podcast. So don't say I never give you anything. And thanks, as ever, to all of you guys for listening as well. I couldn't do it without you, although, to be honest, I probably still would. So I'll be back, same uke time, same uke channel next Wednesday with another great interview for you. And, as ever, it'll be available in all the usual podcasty places. So make sure you're subscribed. Okay, until next time, I love you all, and I wish you the best.
1, 2. Working very good. Let's do this one more time. This time we do it faster.